Hey, welcome to Beyond Design. So in this session of After Effects, we'll be using rotoscoping for doing certain color corrections in this footage that we see on the screen. Now, you may feel there is nothing odd over here, but then let me just buffer the footage. And if you see this tree over here, it's been shot using a Canon camera, and if you compare it to the other things in the background, this is looking quite dark. So what the director has asked us to do now is to color correct this and get this thing matched with the background, maybe something similar to this tree what you have in the background, so that things will look in place. Now this is where you can creatively use After Effects for doing color correction inside a particular footage. Now just look at the before and the after. Now if I just turn this off, you will see we have done the color correction over here on this tree, and now this tree looks more blended with the background and more blended with the footage, and it's not standing out separately altogether. And let's learn how we can get this thing, how we can achieve this inside After Effects. So I have created a composition over here, which is a plain composition. There is nothing over here, just the footage which is available. So if I just buffer this, so this is what we get. It's around 3 seconds and 15 frames or something like that. Like the total length is like 3 seconds and 47 frames. And this is what we have for us in the screen right now. So let's start working on this. Let's see how we can start working on this. So a very simple way, I know if I have to color correct this part, I have to do rotoscoping inside the footage, which is natural, and that's how we have to do it over here. But then when I do rotoscoping, you'll look at the camera movement, and the camera movement is quite organic. It's like a walking movement of the camera. It's not on a gimbal, or it's not on a track, a camera track or something like that, but it's like it's a free movement camera. No matter, it's just panning from one corner to another, but it's a free movement camera. And this would be the difficult part if we just go on creating a roto shape and try to animate it according to the movement of the camera. So in this case, before we can do rotoscoping, we'll learn something different. That is, we'll learn something called as tracking. Tracking will track the movement of this particular area or the pixels over here, which we'll be seeing in the coming tutorials in more detail. But then right now, I just need to track the information from this. And if you know already what tracking is, nothing like it. But then let's see how we can track this particular area over here. Now for this, After Effects has given you an option of something called as tracker, which I have already kept it open over here. So I just have to come, select the footage that I have, and have to say I need to track the camera or track the motion. I'll say I need to track the motion because I need to get the motion from this particular pixel. I'll just say track motion. This will take me to this area over here for tracking. It has opened it into a separate composition window over here. And you have this tracker. I'll just drag this, and you need to put it in an area which is having contrast. So something like this, which is having good amount of contrast. Now, as you can see, my reference frame is on 2 seconds. So definitely you'll have to make a tracking in the front, and I'll also need to make the tracking at the back. And it's pretty simple. You just have to get it at the proper contrasting area. Maybe something like this. This is much better. Maybe I can take it to here, which is a smaller part. And then I can say track forward. I can just say analyze forward. So this analyzes the footage in the front. Just give it some time, let it analyze. And it's analyzing till the front, and you'll see after it analyze it, it has basically created a motion path of the camera movement. Same way, I'll come back on 2 seconds again, and this time I'll say analyze backward, which will be with this button over here. So I'll say analyze backward. And After Effects is analyzing every pixel in every frame, and it's giving me a proper motion. Just imagine if I have to just rotoscope this and animate this thing on, not on every frame, but maybe some of the frames, matching it, getting it properly aligned will be a task. So this is a shortcut way of working, but remember one thing, Now everything that we need to do, that is every rotoscoping that we need to do on this particular tree, has to be done on 2 seconds, because that's the reference frame on which we started our tracking. So in the meanwhile, this thing is still tracking. Let it track. There are only some couple of frames remaining now. Let it track over here. And it should be over. This 15 frames now. And now the tracking is done. And what we have got over here, now if I play from frame number 0, and let me just fit this thing in my screen, put it back. Now you'll play this and you'll see a motion has been tracked over here. A complete motion has been tracked over here. So I'm happy with what's happening. Let me just pause this. And now, how do you get this data from the tracker to the composition? Now there is a trick for this. Right click and say new null. That's a dummy object. And let's name this thing tracking data. Now, this null is just lying in the screen right now, but there is nothing. Like if you come to composition now, see this, there is this null over here, but it does not have any tracking information. Now, how do you get the tracking information from this tracker to the null? Simple. You have to come to the tracker window, say edit target, and choose the null object, that is my tracking data, say OK, and say apply. Now when you say apply, it's going to ask me what dimension do you want to apply. I'll say I want the X and Y, because the camera is moving both in the Y axis and the X axis. So let's keep it to X and Y and say OK over here. Now you'll see, let me just check if the information has been copied. I think the targeting does happen. Yeah, now just play this and check. Can you see that? Now if you look at the tracker, the null already has the information inside its position on every frame over here. So the tracking is done. Now let's go back to 2 seconds over here. Maybe we'll go back properly over here. We'll say 2.00. And now let's start creating our roto shape. Now for creating a roto shape, first we'll create a solid. So I'll take a brighter color. I'll take red right now because the background is quite dark and it is having all the shades of green and all that. Always remember, in the solid, take a color which is in contrast with your background. Don't take something like a green, otherwise it's going to get blended over here. So let's keep it red. Let's say OK. Let's call this thing tree roto main, and we'll say OK. Now this thing has got added to the screen, but I don't want it to be like this. I'll just hide it. Now we have to take our pen tool, see to it you are in the right layer, zoom into the footage, come to the tree layer, and you already know how to work with the pen tool. If you don't, you can see other tutorials on how you can work with the pen tool. But if you are familiar working with Illustrator, Photoshop, or any other package which has Bezier tools, it's exactly the same. So let me just put a point over here and roughly start plotting my roto. Let me just zoom in. Let's give it a go. And okay, what I'll do is I'll fast forward the video and directly come to the point when the roto would be completed. So now that we are done with the roto, we have just a very rough roto. If you want to go really precise, it's going to take too much of time, but then this is what we have done. And now let's take the selection tool and let's click outside and also click on this eye so that we can see the shape over here, which is aligned on the particular tree. You can also press Ctrl Shift H. This will hide all the Bezier shapes that you can see on the screen right now, so that you can just see the mat that we have created over here. Press T on the keyboard for this layer and take the opacity down. Maybe we can make it 50. So you can see now the mat has completely happened over here. And this is how we have completed the roto on this. No matter there is some details which is missing, which you can basically manipulate, but then I have taken the hard edges. Now this is generally what I do is whenever I do a rotoscoping, I add a bit of a feather. So just click on this layer over here, press F on the keyboard and just give a 3 pixel feather or something like that, so that the edges properly blend with the background. And now you are good to go. And the main task would be starting now. And the main task is color correcting this particular tree. Now, how do you do that? But one more thing, remember, we want this motion of the roto to be properly with the camera, and that's the reason why we have created this tracking data information. Now this is how I keep it clean. I keep the tracking information above, and we have the roto now. Just simply do one thing, is parent it to the tracking data null object. Now if you just play this, you'll see the roto is properly moving with my tree, and instead of sitting and keyframing and aligning things, you have simply done it automatically using the tracking information. So voila, we have done this. Let me just pause this. We don't need to see entirely everything. And I'll also do one thing here for making the tutorial faster. Let me just press B over here. Let me go to 3 seconds, press N, so that we can only buffer 1 second and check, as it will make our work more faster. And yeah, done. This is what we have done, and the tracking, the roto is properly moving in the tree now. And now let's go further. Let me just pause this. Pause. Okay, and let me just pause. Yeah, it's paused now. Now what we'll do is we'll come back to the tree, press T on the keyboard, make the opacity as 100, so that the alpha properly gets transferred to the footage. Now we'll duplicate this footage that we have, and we'll say take the alpha from the tree roto main. Now if you are not getting this option, this is because you are in the properties option or the switches option. You can go to the modes option over here and just take the information from the roto mat. And what has happened now is, if I just solo this layer, you have got a cut for the tree over here. Now let's start manipulating and do color correction on this. And a simple way of doing it is keeping the background layer on, keeping this layer on. We'll be using an option inside our effects and presets called as curves, and I'll be putting those curves on the BG footage, or basically the footage that we have done rotoscoping on. Now let's manipulate this. So I'll take the brighter shades down, I'll take the darker shades up, so that we get a bit of a flatter color correction so that it matches with this. Then I can just go to the red channel, maybe just pump it up a bit. I'll go to the green channel, pump it up a bit. And majorly this blue channel, I'll pump it down so that it adds that green color inside. Now can you see that? This is what we have got. Okay, we have got a proper color correction that's added over here, but then still I have this habit of playing with the saturation. So let's go and add a hue saturation over here on this layer. And let's take the saturation down, maybe to -10. Does it look good? Yeah, it looks much more better. Can you see this? A small saturation changes the way your color is getting manipulated. So just take it down. Maybe I'll take it a bit more down, maybe -15 or something, so that the blending happens proper. But now there's a trouble that has happened, and that is, if you see all this tree, they have these white patches all around. Like you can see this white patches over here. Let me just zoom in. Now because we have done color correction, the white patches from this tree has turned green. Now that's something which I don't want. I want that white color to be retained. Now in this case, I'll just select my footage that we have rotoscoped and the roto from where we are taking the roto. Let's copy and paste this. And now I'll make a small manipulation. Let me take this thing down. And this layer, which we have copied on the top, which is the tree layer, let's come to 2 seconds first. And also we need to do one thing is the the parenting is gone. So let me just parent this thing back on the rotor. Let me just do one thing. Let's delete this again. And let's come to this part. Let's solo this and check. Yeah. And we can just duplicate this. Yeah, that's much better. And now the parroting also stays down over here so that if we go further, the tree is properly rotoed. Now let's come back to 2 seconds. I'll come to this layer now and I'll just keep this thing as solo. Now in this, I'll delete the hue saturation and I'll also delete the curves, or maybe I can just reset it. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make it the darkers, I'm going to make it more dark, and the brighters I'll retain, something like this. And let's turn the layer from the bottom on, and this layer over here where we have done this curves, let's change the color mode and say screen, so that the black color disappears and white is retained. Now you'll see, just by doing this small little thing, we have got that white details back inside the screen, okay, inside the footage. And that's a simple way, a simple trick of doing this. And that's how we have manipulated this particular footage and matched it according to the way we want it. You want it to be matched more proper, you can go ahead and add blurs, add color corrections and all that. But this is how the matching can be done. Maybe I can just manipulate this thing a bit more. I can go to the red channel right now and I can just pump this up a bit. Something like this. Yeah, it looks much better, much blended right now. And even this layer over here where we took the whites from, this can be manipulated a bit more so that only the white spot remains over here. Can you see that? And now if you check this with the footage, it's much more blended, much more proper. So this is how we have done this. We have basically used rotoscope for solving our issue of a simple cinematic issue in which the tree that we had was completely black. We have color corrected and we have got this thing back. And simple as that. Like if you see the original footage now, if I just take this and I come over here and I duplicate this, let me put it at the top. And if I just turn this on, see this, turn this on and off, can you see that? We have done a very simple color correction, a very simple technique, but in a very innovative manner. We have learned how to do tracking, we have seen how to do color correction. So this is how you can go beyond doing a simple rotoscoping. And this is what I've generally seen in people when they're working in a VFX company or any other place. This is one trouble they have. They do rotoscoping, but they don't know what the final output is. And in this assignment, we did this rotoscoping because we needed to color correct a scene for cinematic beauty. And that's it. That's it for this session. Hope you liked it. So until we meet next time, thank you.